Session 2 is why positive disruption matters. Disrupting the status quo helps people and organisations become more innovative and progressive and to stay relevant. Modernised training models need to be fit for purpose and flexible to accommodate industry's needs and resource demands, time constraints and also the culture. There is time for questions after each speaker. We have 3 speakers in this session. First up is Michelle Anderson from Te Hiku Group Employment, the Te Hiku Group Employment Program, followed by Josh Williams from Skills Consulting Group, and then Craig Langdon from Mukatangata. So Michelle Anderson will be talking to us about the Tupu project, which we did some collaboration in terms of helping them to do a case study and to publish I would suggest a really good report, Michelle. All right, so please welcome Michelle to the stand.
Testing. We good? All right, kia ora tātou, ko Michelle Anderson toku ingoa, no muri whenua whānui aho. There's a feedback from that mic. Too close to this. Okay, I was trying to hide the fact that I'm reading off large A4 paper, but... Okay, it's a pleasure to present today about... Oh, sorry, I forgot the clicker.
Michelle, if you just knock the mic down, you should, and push it down, you should be all right standing.
Okay, we'll try that. All right, so I work for Te Hiku Iwi Development Trust, which is based in Kaitaia. And what we're presenting today is about a group employment program, which started in 2021. So it was initially a 24-month pilot period, which we just completed actually in March of this year. And so we're now into the 3rd year, which is in business as usual, as we like to say. So it's a 12-month work and learn group employment horticulture program. It's delivered by iwi for the community. So the iwi that has the operational lead is Te Raroa. We've got a lot of, this is obviously a team effort. I just got to be here because I won the rock, paper, scissors. So I work for Te Hiku Iwi Development Trust. A unit within the trust is the Te Hiku Crown Joint Work Program. And we'll talk a little bit about that because it does provide like the enabling environment where we've been able to get the positive disruption. Ministry of Social Development, Te Kōkiri, Ministry of Business and Innovation and Tertiary Education Commission are our Crown partners. Te Raroa, Te Apōuri and Ngāi Tākatoa are our iwi partners. And New Zealand Sports Turf Institute, Education Unlimited and Māori are our training providers. So just a little bit of background on the Te Hiku Iwi Crown Social Wellbeing Social Development and Wellbeing Accord. It was signed in 2013. So the signing partners are 3 of our Tiku o Te Ika iwi, 4th iwi, Ngāti Kahu have settled, but they're flying solo right now, and Ngāti Kahu have not settled, so once they complete their settlement process, they're invited to join the trust. And Ngāti Kuri are doing their development and wellbeing separate. This was signed with Ministry of Social Development as the lead agency, Te Kōkiri as the support agency, but about 10 other agencies have come on and signed, and there's various portfolio agreements between us and those individual agencies. And from the signing of the social accord, Te Hiku Iwi Development Trust was formed, which is the operational part to implement the objectives of the accord. And really what the intention of the accord is, out of the treaty settlement process, there's the historical grievance settlement, which is usually an economic settlement. But there was recognition that that was not sufficient to address for Te Hiku some of the really deeply entrenched social and economic inequities. So we wanted to define what's the operational relationship like moving forward. We're going to be mates now. Let's get a contract to say, yes, we're going to be mates, we're going to work together and set up the structures, the governance and the mechanisms to define how that relationship is going to work moving forward. As we work together on 7 areas of mutually codependent dimensions of wellbeing, workforce and capability development come under some of those 7 outcomes, but we view them all quite holistically because they do interconnect and interrelate together. And we view any engagement we have with our Te Hiku whānau as an opportunity to address across all of those, not just training outcomes, not just employment outcomes, but their social wellbeing, their health and so on. So the Accord really is the foundation to the Tupu program. It's provided an enabling environment and allowed us to troubleshoot different signature initiatives, Tupu horticulture is one of them, to address system issues and barriers. Someone made a comment earlier about finding the stones and picking them out, and we use the same metaphor or analogy as we go through different environments. With Crown and, hey, what's this doing here? That doesn't belong there. You can get rid of that and try and create an enabling environment for the goals of the social accord to be achieved. There's a quote in a philosophy which is called two-eyed seeing, and it was coined by, I think, Mi'kmaq elders from the Eskasoni First Nations people. And the concept is that you have the one eye, which is the traditional knowledge and values, and the other eye, which represents the Western knowledge and values, and that seeing both through both of those eyes is when you're able to achieve the outcomes that you're trying to get. So it's really about getting the balance between those two knowledge systems, having respect for them, and recognising that it's bringing those together in a strengths-based relationship that you're going to achieve those outcomes. All right, so a little bit of background on Te Hiku, for those that aren't familiar. So our rohe, or our area that we cover, if you know where the Hokianga is, Hokianga Harbour, and if you were to go in and cut through the middle, so you've got northern Hokianga here, and all the way across, anything north of that is considered Te Hiku or Te Ika. Within that area, we've got quite a dispersed population of about 25,000 people, majority of which are Māori, and particularly within our younger population. So, for example, about 60% of the population is Māori, but under the age of 24, then it's above 80%. And in the Kaitaia area schools district, 93% of our students are Māori. So we've got a predominantly Māori population, far beyond what we have as the national average. Other areas like in Tairāwhiti or the Chathams have similar. And so that's where we use the strength of the social accord, because we need government investment, government procurement to be able to be fit for purpose for our population, for our sub-regional needs, and to be able to respond. And so we work alongside to trial and incubate different things and different initiatives, and Tupu horticulture was the first of those. Total GDP in our region is just under $1.963 billion for last year, with a growth rate of 3.8% last year. We have the highest unemployment in the country, and right now that might be a little bit with the strained labour market, that might be viewed sort of as an opportunity, in that we have underutilised labour, that if we get the right supports in place, we have people to transition into work. Average incomes are $38,000 a year if you're a Māori woman in Te Hiku, $42,000 a year if you're a Māori male, and that was as at February last year. Difference of that is maybe $14,000 compared to the national average for females, and $28,000 compared to the national average for males. And I won't get too much into the deficit statistics, but I just want to illustrate that the need for positive disruption is quite critical where we are. And in fact, everything we need to do needs to be disruptive, needs to be a circuit breaker, needs to break intergenerational patterns of underinvestment in our region, patterns of dependence on job seeker and benefits as well intergenerationally. For horticulture, it constitutes 2.9% of the GDP, compared to 0.5% nationally. And so we see a lot of opportunity for growth in horticulture in our region. And the genesis of Tupu was Te Raroa purchased in 2019 Bells, which is a market gardens and orchards, 212 hectares. It neighboured onto land that they'd got in settlement, which neighbours onto Ngāi Takatoa land that they received in settlement. So the scope for growth and expansion across that land and in the market gardens was seen as an opportunity. But the issue was that they were not able to, they wanted to be able to provide jobs to their people, but didn't have the right pathways and the right training in place. And so that was the genesis of Tupu horticulture. I've got not much time left, so I'll get into the main points. This is our model at the moment. So these are our investors, and I'll just do this. This is our investment flows. So Ministry of Social and Development, our joint work program, Te Puni Kōkiri, and tertiary education provide investment to either for the training or for the group employer. The group employer hires 20 kaingaki kari or participants. They're employed full-time. And so we get great outcomes in terms of attendance, participation and completion, and it's a proportion of about 70% practical work, about 20% training time. We've learnt to build in 10% as a buffer. And trainers, Modi provides the pre-employment, and then that's an on-ramp. So this is used a bit as a screening. New Zealand Sports Turf Institute is responsible for the Level 2 and Primary Industries Certificate, and Education Unlimited provide literacy and numeracy training, digital literacy and financial literacy. We have the host employers, who are the other growers, and so we were talking about like the casual employment model and the seasonal nature of the workforce. And so this is one of the issues that we're trying to address here. We're trying to work with various host employers, create like a client relationship management database, and work with them to try and fill in as much as we can a full year calendar so that we, across the different sectors. And that's something that we're still building out. And then the different investors. So this is different to the form of the operating model in the pilot, and it's still changing. Some of the characteristics of the model that I think are disruptive is we do a rolling enrolment. We recognise that having 20 people looking for full-time work in the same sector at one time was not a sustainable option. And so as people reach employment readiness, and they may not necessarily have finished the 12 months, or even the course, but as work becomes available, we'll actually transition them off and on, and MSD provide work brokerage for that support. We have a stakeholder governance group. This is like our troubleshooting group, and in the pilot period, we met every 2 weeks. And so anything that came up throughout the course of the pilot that needed to be addressed, that was presenting a system issue, that needed assistance, it was the responsibility of the stakeholder group to address it at that level. And then this is where our social accord governance kicks in. If it can't be addressed there, it goes to a regional working group, which is the regional heads of agencies with our iwi leaders. And if it can't be addressed there, then every 2 months there's a systems condition working group, which is the CEs of ministries and our iwi chairs. And so we're able to take it all the way up to those levels to try and address some of these barriers that we face. And I'd say that's been really key to being able to forge forward and provide a way for this to work, for this to be sustainable. This always also is a knowledge transfer. So we're building capability here in Hort, but also building capability of Te Arawa as a group employer, which will have future commercial value for them. Our other iwi partners come on board, and so they just learn by osmosis, and they might not have as much of a participation as Te Arawa, but they participate in terms of just sitting on that stakeholder group. And then, so these are some of our outcomes. So across cohort 1 and cohort 2, in total we had 49 starts, so people who started the program, including withdrawals. 63% of them completed the program, so went to the full 12 months, which is 31. Of those that completed, 97% are in employment, which is 62% overall of all those starts. And achievement of the licences, which is tractor, chainsaw and forklift, 90% of those completed got those licences, so that's 28 within our little community that now have these licences that make them a lot more employable. And then the level 2 cert in primary industries. We didn't set out to develop a qualification, it was not our primary concern. We went to the industry and just said, what do you need? And so they gave us a list, and that's what we did. And it ended up that we were able to pull it together into a level 2 certificate. But really those licences, the tractor or chainsaw training, and with the different relationships with the host employers and being able to bring that training into the region, it allows us to get an economies of scale that they don't really normally have access to, especially for our smaller growers. And so we collaborate within the industry, and that's something we're still building those relationships and growing those relationships as well. All right, that end. It's not actually... thank you. You know, I totally overwrote this presentation, so it ended up being 30 minutes, and so that was me just trying to condense it into 50 minutes and trying to pull forward all the main things that I wanted to deliver. But look, at the end of the day, I think the most disruptive thing that we do is we care about them, and that's unique when you're working with your own whānau. You know, Māori we're a collective culture, and we do collaborate in ways I think that are culturally and commercially distinctive. It brings in the long-term orientation thinking, and particularly with the wraparound pastoral care, you do see the difference, and especially in how the environment and the program feels. I went to Pōwhiri on April 17th, and I saw 2 students who had been there the year before. And the year before, when they were students, heads down, not wanting to make direct eye contact, and then I saw them come back as employees of Te Arawa because they had been sort of off-ramped into jobs within Te Arawa, and one of them had become a supervisor or a navigator for the program. And so that for me was really indicative of the shift. And it's really hard to articulate, I think, with data and research, that stuff like the intangibles. It's what we see and feel when we encounter these programs. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay, just wait for the microphone. Olivia, to you first.
Hi, thank you so much, and amazing achievements. If you were to look back, and I suppose looking forward as well, is there anything that you would change on the way of what you've done? Like, would you add or subtract anything that you've done to date?
No. Sorry, I know it's probably a simplistic answer. Like, we approached it, it's not the most efficient or sustainable in its current form, and that's why I hesitated to answer, but we didn't have the local capability or capacity to be able to do all of this, so a lot of it at some cost is still being imported in from outside of our area. So we're in a process of capability development transfer. And I mentioned that we had a model before, we're in a new model now, and then the next iteration of our model is probably going to be a Te Pukenga iwi co-delivery model. But as part of our network of provision and supporting our local Te Pukenga North Tech provider, we're still uplifting them and working on them to gear up to be able to respond to a program like this. So what that's going to look like over the next year is we're going to hang out, we're going to be mates, we're going to do things together and then merge.
Kia ora. Thank you. My main question, can I come and visit you?
Yep.
Awesome. I've got so many questions and would love to find out a bit more about it. And the main one is, how can others learn from what you have done? And, you know, because what you've described is not unique, unfortunately, to Yorohe. So how can others learn from what you have done and maybe look at doing something locally as well?
Well, there's a really great report that was completed by Skills Consulting, currently on the Food and Fibre Cove website, and it was completed at the end of the first year. So there's been some learning since, but it does discuss the model. One of the things we want to make sure is the model is one that's transferable, which we're currently doing in plumbing and in trades now. And so the group employment model, it brings together a lot of our small businesses as well to be able to collaborate, and there's side and unintended benefits out of that, and creating like a platform, a collaborative platform for them to connect into. And we're already being asked to do like scenario modelling for scaling up to 30 or 40 because our avocados are starting to mature and the demand for workforce is increasing further. So it might be an aspect that's training and working, and then an aspect of group employer that you can move into that's work only, but was still working through what that's going to look like.
Can you hear me? Is that on? Oh, yeah. I'm Ellen. Hey, I just wanted to say thanks very much for that. And it's not a question, it's almost a suggestion, is just the power of you. So the way you just told that story, I always think if you want to change the world, you have to change people's hearts. And when you told the story about that young guy who had been on the course the year prior, and you said, oh, it's really hard to measure those things and explain and articulate. Well, I felt goose pimples, and I reckon probably a lot of other people in the room did as well. So, you know, in terms of sharing this and taking this further, like the way you just told that story is a way, I think, to get more people doing this kind of stuff. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, because all I could hear was like the nervous Woody in my voice just going, so I didn't think I was communicating much that confidently, but thank you for that feedback. And yeah, like I like to visit the program, so my role is more of a governance, monitoring and evaluation one, to support the capability of our iwi to be able to service provide in that space. But I do get the opportunity just to go and hang out, and I take the opportunity to talk to them and just say, hey, how are you enjoying the program? And the words they use take me back, because they're like, I love it. And I know that they aren't saying that just because they think that's what they want to hear. I know that they mean it. And we, from our pastoral care approach, we're like, any barriers that are preventing you from engaging in work, whether they are reasonable or not, without any judgment, we look to address them. And that's really important to us, is to take it from whatever it is, whatever the need is, even if others might view it as unreasonable. And that's a constant conversation with our employers and our industry, is that it's really about breaking the circuit and allowing those habits to form. And after a while, you'll be able to step back. But it's about, for us, we've seen that taking that approach is effective.
Kia ora, Michelle. Thank you so much. It was inspirational and awesome, and you were a great presenter and told your story really well in my view. I don't want this question to cast any negative tone on that, but what insights could you share about the non-completers?
The different reasons. So a range of reasons, because we have looked into to try and see, okay, what's the, moving away, sickness in family, not able to participate, not maybe failing testing, because we do testing for depending on the employer. So there's a range of reasons, but some of them because they've been placed into work or had job offers. And all of the participants for Tupu come off JobSeeker. So they come through job seeker, yeah. So we look at one of the, I think, limitations with how we're currently evaluating is we do want to see, because we're still being affected by the seasonal nature of horts, so they are still coming off and on work sometimes once they've finished the program, but we do want to be able to look at proportion of time spent off benefit across a period rather than sort of taking snapshot moment in time data. And then with our monitoring and evaluation, we try and have that quite robust because for the future of our program, we want it to be able to inform like ESG reporting frameworks. We want our monitoring evaluation to be at international standards, so we use like log frame models, and not that it's necessary, but one of the guys was talking about AI. If you're just starting what you're going to do, start where you need it to be for whatever your aspirations up there are, so that's the approach.
Before I did this work, I actually worked in career counselling and worked with people on the benefit. And one of the things with agricultural things was that seasonal aspect. And if they did need to go back on the benefit, there was a stand down period after you'd been working.
Yeah.
Have you found a way to get around that?
I don't know the answer to that one. It hasn't been raised. It hasn't been raised or communicated to us with MSD that's what's happening with these particular participants. So I'm not sure. I'll need to check and get back to you on that one.
It'd be a really interesting one because I imagine quite a lot of people resist going into the seasonal work because of it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Michelle, thanks so much. A really great story there. Can you have some comment on the impact the program's having in the region? Are you seeing further demand, and is there any shift in the age groups, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we actually get quite a broad range in age groups of participants. More awareness of the program is growing within the hort sector. We work mostly with avocados, and there's they own a group of orchards, Mapua, Tiri, and a few others, and then mostly with Bells. And Bells, the one that Te Rarawa owns, does provide like a really great range of different learning opportunities, and where we're looking to grow the program into is Tall Natives Nursery, and that's to support some of I think MPI have a program around tall natives, but there's the supply chain is lacking to be able to meet the 300,000 hectares that they're looking to grow. And the reason that's important is because we've been hit by the volatility of the hort sector. So we'll fill in a calendar, and then that calendar is not guaranteed at all, which I'm sure you well know. So in the first year, we got hit with COVID, and so we ended up with about a $200,000 loss in the first year for that reason. And then in the second year, we had still some of that volatility, so we want to build in another source of income that can be done outside of sort of the demand and supply and changes of different ones. But we're also now building in like a MOU with our host employers where they're agreeing to pay for the work even if the work drops out, or commit to replacing the time period further down. In the second year, we finished with a cash flow surplus of about 30,000, but an accounting deficit of about 40,000 due to depreciation and other costs, which was much better than the first year. And Tika Iwi Development Trust had underwritten the program, so that came from us. So we made extra sure that that wasn't going to happen again.
Okay, I think that's enough time for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.